Today we're going to redraw an existing set of plans from a real project, taking it step by step from the walls to the windows and doors, as well as the roof, and a bunch of troubleshooting along the way. To kick off, I've taken a photo of these plans here, and I've brought them into the ArchiCAD file. From here, we'll want to start by redrawing the existing external walls. So I've taken some photos on site. So this area here is this area just here. So this is engaged brickwork just on this portion here. So to kick off, I'm going to draw in these walls around this area. Now, before I get too much further, I want to take this and I'll want to rotate the actual drawing itself. This way, I've got it lengthwise across the page, which is going to be much easier to fit onto an A3 page. Let's kick off with our first wall, and I'll go in through to my 110 brick existing. So from here, I'll just start in the corner that we started on the measure up, 6040, next up 1340, and I'm just going to go around the entire structure, doing each one of these walls. Now, one thing worth noting is that this drawing itself isn't to scale, so we can't just trace over these drawings. We have to use the measurements that we've got on the actual plans themselves. So even though things are starting to get a little bit away from what the drawing looks like, that's okay because we're just using the measurements. 4205. Now, it looks like we haven't got any external measurements for this portion here. And I'm pretty sure it's because we had a fence here, as well as just over on this portion here. So if I pick up this picture, yep. So there was a fence just here and a fence just here that prevented us from getting access to taking these measurements just in through here. But that's okay because we can use internal measurements to fill out this area. So for the time being, I'm just going to draw a line across through to here. Looks like we're pretty close. We're about 60-ish mil. Now, the reason why we've got a 0.1, I presume, is most likely going to be because we've got angled walls. The angled walls, unlike the rest of our walls, which are at 90 and at 0, might leave us with dimensions that are slightly off what we typically use, which is either 0s or 5s. This way we don't end up with odd dimensions. We'll continue to refine this as we start drawing more and more of the existing in. Now, one other thing worth noting, I've drawn all of these in as double brick, but these here, except for this one just here in the garage, are going to be brick veneer. So what I will do is I'll deselect this one here, and I'm going to use the cut tool. I'm going to cut and select this way. I'm going to change all these to brick veneer. So I'll go into my walls, and I'll change this to a 250 brick veneer. There we go. And all of those push on in. Now I've set this to the proposed brick veneer. I want to set this one to the existing. There we go, that's better. Having a different existing versus proposed helps us delineate what is going to be altered and what is remaining as existing. Next thing we want to do, we want to start building out the existing internals, and that will start refining the external footprint for this section just up here as well. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to grab this front wall just here from the garage. It's a 110 wall, so I'm just going to push that in 110. So now that's just ready to draw in like this. So I'm going to go 5845, which is this internal dimension that we've got here. Now this wall steps in. So what I'm going to want to do, I'll just draw a wall here. I'll bring it up. Then I'm going to bring this down 3420. I'll extend this wall out just here. And then I'm going to intersect these two walls. So intersect is just this tool here. I've got mine set up with a little shortcut, just so it's quicker and easier. Looks like we've got our dimension from here to here, 2255, which is slightly different to what our measurement is here. Seeing as these two walls don't connect up, I'm going to interpret these to try and make it work. So if I grab these walls just here that we've just created, I'll bring this one on down to here, and then I'll bring this up 2255, and let's see where that brings us to. So much closer to this wall actually matching up with this side one just here, which means that this wall here might need a little bit of massaging. And this could be due to these angled walls not being at exactly 45 degrees. They could be a little bit further across or back, which is going to mean the wall's position is going to be further up or back. So we'll just have to compensate as we go. From here, I'm just going to check a couple of the other internal dimensions. 5790, 5795. That's pretty close. 5 mil is within an acceptable tolerance. All right, so I've got all these external wall dimensions here. I don't have a dimension from this wall here in through to this wall here, which is a pity. But what I can do is I can use this dimension that I picked up just here. But first, there's something I want to share. We're going through a real construction site, For a job that I've drawn, we'll go through what it looks like here on the floor plan of the architecturals, as well as what it looks like on the floor plan of the engineering, and how they actually look in real life, as well as what they're called and why they are there. We're going to go through a couple of the feature details and break it down step by step. So starting with this corner window, we've got the window just here. This is our view out to the water, so we don't want this interrupted in through here. Now this is what it looks like when it's all finished up. So we've got no column coming down through that corner. Otherwise we'd take out a fair bit of the view. So to support the roof load that's coming down through here, but what I can do is I can use this dimension that I picked up just here. So I'm going to click and drag this wall. I'm going to flip it around. Then I'm going to drag it just to here. And then I'm going to pull it across. How much is this dimension? 3040. There we go. Now I've typed that one in. Now I'll intersect these two walls here. Interestingly, these walls don't match up. So we're going to have to figure out what's going on here. Let's check what the difference in the dimension is. About 155. This could be from a few things. This might mean that the dimension itself was actually picked up from this portion of the engaged brick pier. So this width just here is going to be at least 110 extra to that brickwork there. So what I do, I'll just bring this one back 110 and hit enter. And that's getting us much closer already because we've just drawn that from the inside instead of, say, that engaged brick, which leaves us the difference of about 45, which is getting much closer. Now, ideally, we would have had a overall picked up from here to here. And this way, we don't have to do as much interpreting, but we can still work around this. And what might be best is just to come back to this area after we've got a bunch of the other areas drawn up. So what I'll do with these areas drawn up, I'll just continue to work my way through these areas just here. So I'm going to pick up this wall just here. I'm going to create a duplicate. Now that's the other thing. So these are all still 110 brick walls that I've done up, but this isn't necessarily the case. These here are going to be 90 stud walls, 90 stud existing walls. These are engaged external brick walls, whereas these are internal walls. So we'll change over those right now, just so we don't get too far doing everything as 110, because these internal walls weren't brickwork. Okay, next up, let's do this wall just here. Let's go 90 mil. And we'll go 2710, which I've just picked up this dimension just from here. Let's do our laundry and get a couple of quick wins in. Let's go 90 mil. So I've just got it so that when I'm dragging it, it's from internal face to internal face, which is 2050 in this case. Let's duplicate that again, 90, and we'll tidy up this space just under here in a sec. There's a lot of different things going on in the drawing at the moment between the actual measure up and the drawing that we're creating itself. But this is the quickest way I've found to be able to use the reference drawing and draw over the top at the same time. They're not lining up, again, just because it isn't to scale. Next up, we've got this ensuite. I'm just going to drag this up a little bit so I can start seeing these dimensions a bit better. There we go. So let's go Control D and 2220 from this wall here to this one here. And let's check and see how our bedroom is traveling. So I'll grab the dimension tool and I'm just going to dimension up. Oops, I'm just going to set it to the correct geometry method, I think. This one here. We've got this on dimensions. There we go. All right, let's select this wall and our other ones and just see how we're traveling compared to our actual measurements. Double click and there we go. How are we going? So 3980. We're a fair bit off on this one. I'm curious as to what could be causing it. I dare say it might be the angle of the wall, might be causing our trouble in a couple of these different areas. We'll have to come back to these in a minute. But this is where drawing the rest of the internal walls can actually help us define the footprint of the exterior portion. Now, this external wall here is punched out, but we'll come back to that in a minute. For the time being, let's just keep on connecting up the dots. Let's drag our reference up a little bit. So we've got a hallway just here. Sadly, we also don't have a dimension between these areas here, so we're just going to have to intuit it through a couple of other areas as well. All right, I'm just going to jump into these bedrooms just down here. Click and drag this one up, 4180. I'll connect these two, and then I'll get the width for the bedroom. So at the moment, just following all the different dimensions that we do have on the plans. And while I'm going throughout, I'm typically checking just to see how close we are to the dimensions that we've taken on site. Say this wall to this wall just here, and I'll double click up here. That's 9595, and the dimension we took is 9605. So that's about 10 mil. So that's pretty close. 10 mil difference from here to here. And considering that these structures here, that say 250, they're not including the actual plasterboard. So we're pretty much bang on in some areas like this, which is great because we're checking the dimensions as we go, and we can confirm what's bang on and what might have been adjusted along the way with tolerances that have built up through the different building materials. Now, when we are drawing up, for our workflow anyway, we don't typically draw with the finishes on the walls. So this means that we're just drawing from the actual stud itself, not from the plasterboard. This is one of my favorite bits. When we've got 3 different walls and we do an intersection, check this out. Boom. That's pretty cool. Very satisfying. Now this wall that we've got here at the moment, we're almost 200 mil out. So 205 mil. Here's the difference between what the measurement is and the measurement that we've got once we've drawn up all the walls. It's always handy to have a second dimension to reference and check off of, which we're going to use this one just here. So 4840. So that's from this internal wall to this internal wall here. Now that's showing up at 5010, which means if I draw this line in here and I go 4840, and then if I check out the difference between this and this, so that's 170, and this one here and this one here is 200. So that means that something along the way has pushed us out by almost roughly 200 mil. And what I'm suspecting is that it might be this wall just here. So what I'd be best off doing is, if these dimensions here and here are closer than the dimension that we ended up with via this one here, then we'd be better off averaging between these 2 dimensions just here, which is essentially a 30 mil difference between this one here and this one here. So if we divide that by 2 and just go, say, 15 over one dimension and 15 under the other, then we should end up with a more accurate overall dimension. So if we go 4840 and we hit enter and then we give it an extra 15, then that should be pretty close. So if we close those 2 up and then we check what this dimension is here, 4030, and our dimension was 3980. So almost about 50 mil-ish out just in that portion there, which isn't ideal, but much closer than 200 mil. So I'm always trying to pick up extra dimensions whenever I can. So let's go ahead and take our reference off. And with that, we've pretty much got all of our walls done. So all in all, if I line up the drawing, we're pretty far out in this part here, which is to be predicted. This is where we ended up stopping going to scale because we ran out of page. All right, so from here with all the external and internal walls drawn up, I'm now going to go through and put in all of the different openings from windows to doors and everything between. So again, I find it easiest to actually have the measure up underneath just so I can line up roughly what doors and windows are instead of having to look up and down from the pad all the time. Makes it easier for me anyway. So kicking off, I'll go to the door and then I will select the garage door that we've got just here. I'm going to select and place this one into the wall. And I'll type in its dimension. We've got 2200, which is height. So we've always got our height and then our width. That way, no matter what, for any opening or window, it's going to be universal. We're going to type in the height and then the width and not mix the 2 up. This is the system that I use here in New South Wales. Whereas previously at another job up in Queensland, we did it the opposite way. So it depends where you work, but always keep them one way or the other. Otherwise, you're going to end up with a lot of confusion. But that's where having pictures comes in really handy. And again, same thing here with the windows. I'm going to go to the window tool and I'm just going to go to our window sliding, this one here, and I'm going to enter this one in. Now, while I'm drawing these up, I do have the dimensions turned on. So these dimensions just here that you can see on the outside. When we're actually finishing the drawings, we're going to want to turn off all of these for the existing drawings. So it's easier again to delineate between what's existing and what is new. As we're going through, we're just using each of these different markers that we drew up to reference where the window and door is within the actual plan itself. So we've done that for this window here. Now to do it for this door, so we'll bring this one down and bring it back up, 455. Looks like I haven't noted the action for this window just here. So I'll just go to the photos that I took on site, and that is this window just here, which you can see is just a sliding window, just from the way the panels are all set up. So I'll just keep that as a sliding window. Now, one other thing, just when we're drawing up the existing, you'll see where the window is placed within the wall itself. So you'll see that it's inset. So typically for a brick veneer, this inset is about 85 mil. So we'll type that one in, and that roughly centers it, if not perfectly centers it, inside the actual wall itself. So just one to keep in mind if you're drawing up brick veneer. Oh, now one other thing, we'll just want to make sure that the head height for the windows is set correctly as well. So what I'll do, I'll just select all the windows here that I've got at the moment by holding in the eyedropper. So I'll use eyedropper, I'll select the window, I'll go Control A, which will select all the windows within the walls. And now I'm just going to set it to 2100, which is my head height that I set just up here. So if I pop into the 3D and I scroll on around, so the head height is how high the head of the window is to the actual wall base. Now, when you're actually setting it, you'll just want to make sure that you've got it set on the right one of these. So if you've got it set to one of the other ones and then you type in, say, 2100, it's going to set it all completely wrong. So just make sure that it is header to wall base, and we're going to go 2100 for this one. Okay. Now, sometimes it could be 2400, so don't just assume that it's always 2100. Make sure you take a measurement on site. All right, and with that, we've done all of the windows. So if we have a little quick look-see at that. Next up, we just need to finish off doing the doors. So again, I'll just put the reference under, and I'll start going through and doing each of the individual doors. Again, I'll just go to the door tool. So from here, it's pretty much just going to the door. We'll pick up this one just here, putting it into the wall, and offsetting it the dimension that we've listed it, which in this case, it looks like I've missed the dimension for the 820 door just here, how far it's offset from this wall here. So again, I'll just go to the photos, this one just here. We can see it's pretty much 0. I'd say about 75 mil off, just because it's got architraves around it. So this is where photos come in so critical. If there is a dimension that hasn't been picked up, we can pick it up essentially just by looking at the photograph, for non-critical members anyway. So let's just go say 75 mil. And now we have got all of the doors drawn in. Let's check it out in 3D. Double click the mouse button, and yeah, it's come along a treat. That's pretty cool. All right, so from here, next up, we'll want to put in all the different room names. Very easy. So we'll just go undo, put this back, and we'll just go through with the text tool, this one just here. And just typical 2mm in font size at 1:100. Living, there we go. And we've got it at Arial as well for the font type. So living, we'll go bed. Now this drawing's obscuring our view a little bit, so I'll just put this on the story below. I'll cut and paste it just to there. And then I'll go back up story, control up, and that way I can just go through. I've got these rooms relatively memorized, so it should be easy now. Just go through and duplicate it and label out through each of these different rooms. Now with text, we'll always want to keep it horizontal. The only exception being for the robes, where if they are vertical like this, we'll just put in the text vertical. Or if they're horizontal, we'll put them in horizontal. But always keeping the text the same orientation where possible. To do the slabs, we'll want to go to the slab tool, this one just up here. We'll hold in spacebar and you'll see a blue line appear around the outside of the actual building. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to click. It doesn't look like anything's happened, but if we go into 3D, double click our middle mouse button and we pan on up, we'll see that we have a floor now throughout the entire structure, which is pretty cool. The only thing is the garage height is in reality lower than the height of the rest of the building. So to do this, to change it so it's more accurate, we'll just go into 2D again. We'll take the slab and we'll use our split tool, this one just up here. And we're going to split this slab off the rest of the slab. Now this one, we're going to reshape it just so that fits in just here like that. Yep. And then we're going to reshape this other slab that we just created here so that we're not overlapping with the two different slabs. That one and that one. And if I go down a story to my measure up, I'll just have this measurement here, 675 ground to garage. So that's the height difference between the two. To do this, I'll just go back up to the story and I'm going to select the slab that we created and I'm going to go -675 and I'm going to go enter. Nothing appears to have happened here on the screen, but if we go into our 3D, again, double click, and we'll notice this one has moved down. To get the walls to do the same thing, I'm just going to select all of this and deselect our slab and our text. And I'm going to do the same thing on this left-hand side. Your palette might be up top here, but it's this palette here. And again, we're going to go -675 and hit enter. Let's check it out in 3D. Yeah, that's looking more accurate. Now let's give it a look from the outside. So this is the building here at the moment. So it's slab on ground pretty much there at the moment. But as we get further across to this area here, if we go across in the photos, we'll notice that the slab goes all the way from here all the way to the ground. So to emulate this, what I'll just need to do is increase this slab size so it meets the bottom one. So I'll just grab this edge node here and I'll just bring this one on down. Now, if we did have a survey, it would be far more accurate to actually get the FFLs around the building. But just to get the building to match up, so it matches with the existing building for the time being with the information that we have. We'll just drag that one on down. We'll also draw in this patio here in a sec. But before we do that, we'll also want to grab these walls here from the garage. These ones just here. We'll deselect our slab, and we'll want to change the settings for these so that they're not 2450, which is the height that we've got set for the internal walls inside. We'll want to set it as 3040, which is the height that we measured on site. Just there. And if we go into our 3D there now, then yes, it should all pretty well match up. So this has been set down, the walls have been extended up, and it's starting to get closer to what it looks like in real life. I'm just going to change the material of these posts real quick. I'll select all these. I'll change it from wood deck to a render A. There we go. That'll make it look a little bit cleaner already. All right, let's do the patio as we just did mention. I'll just go back to our drawing. All right, I've just gone ahead and I've drawn that up with the slab tool, done another slab here. I'm just going to offset this down so that we can emulate that step, which is say about 190. And then I'll grab the slab, and I'll grab both these slabs, and I'll bring these on down 190 as well. That one's actually 195, so I'll bring that down another 5 mil. There we go. And then I'll go ahead and grab these slabs, and I'll bring them so they match up with the bottom of this one just here. There we are. Now, in reality, this step here doesn't comply with the National Construction Code. If this was a proposed step, we'd need to add in an additional step so that it can actually get in below that 190 millimeter maximum rise. But we're just drawing up what the existing situation is on site, so we're not going to worry about it. I'll go ahead and extend these posts on down too. There we go. That's looking more accurate to what we have on the picture. All right, so we've got our walls, windows, we've got our doors, we've got our slabs, and we've even set them to the correct heights. Next big win that we'll want to get is our roof. The roof for this one is going to be a bit of fun because we've got so many different walls jutting in and out. But if we use the roof tool, it's going to make this so much easier. So let's go to our roof. This one just here, and we'll make sure that it's set to geometry method multiplane. Now what we could do is just hover our mouse over the exterior wall and just click once. That's going to create our roof. It's relatively close, but there's a few things that we'll need to tweak. So I'm just going to adjust this one so that it's set to our parameters where we've got the roof line shown, but not the rest of the actual roof. I'll make a dedicated video on this because there are a few steps to it. From here, I'm just going to set this one to the actual roof story itself. And that way, if we say go into 3D, double click, our roof has been set above. Now we'll want to go to our project map and we'll go into our story settings. We're going to change this one so that the ground to first and the first floor are 0. We'll go okay. This is just part of the base template and something that we can adjust as we go. So with that now set, we've got our roof and it's sat down on top of our walls. But if we go back into 2D and then go back to our floor plan itself, ground floor existing, I'll just change these pens so that they're not as much of an eyesore. There we go. If we look at the roof lines over here at the moment and then compare them, say, to an aerial shot that the real estate captured, we're going to notice a few differences. So these dashed lines here, where the roof juts out, aren't actually here on the real building. And this is where having an aerial shot can make such a massive difference. So if you don't have an aerial shot, check out Google Maps or any cadastral website that has top-down view of the site. This could be the planning viewer if you're in New South Wales. Anyway, back to the drawing. Now, the way we've done it just here at the moment is good to get us started off, but the pitching point isn't set in the right location because the pitching point needs to be on top of the exterior portion of the stud wall. So to zoom in here, just for a second, this wall here essentially represents a brick veneer wall. This external part just here, this is the brick portion of the brick veneer wall. This middle bit here, this is the cavity, and this bit just here is the actual stud itself. So with your pitching point, you want the pitching point to be on the outside of the stud wall, all along the exterior. So to do this, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to straighten up this roof, first things first, so that it just goes all the way along. Going to adjust this one just up here. There we go. This means that we're going to have a bulkhead throughout this area just here, which if we check the photos, we can see is built into this area just here. So this is where the pitching point comes down to here, and they've essentially bulked in this area just here. Anyway, we won't go into too much detail with that. So we'll grab this point here, this node, and this node just over here, and we'll clean up this one just there. Now, to get this so that it's lined up to that stud wall, we'll just want to go to our pet palette and inset all edges, and we'll inset this one till it hits the outside of the actual stud wall. And with that, we should be a little bit closer. So let's check out our 3D. And if we pan up to the top and have a little look down on the actual roof itself, And if we compare this to, say, our real estate image here, we're getting a bit closer. You'll notice here that all the roof lines meet up to one central ridge, so we'll need to adjust this roof plane here accordingly. And that this roof here is straight and it comes up to a ridge point just here. So we'll also need to adjust this. To adjust this, let's grab our post and chuck one just over here. This is in the existing setup. I'm not just adding in a random post. I'll show you in a sec. So it's this post just here. This post is picking up this portion of the roof, and this is going to simplify the roof plane itself. So I'll grab this roof plane. I'll pull out the pitching point until it's in line with this part just here, holding in shift. And then I'll click this node over the top of this node. And there we go. That straightens up that roof just there. I'm just going to drag this post until it's centered to that point just there. Now we've got another weird roof plane just here. So it's a similar type of situation. We've got another post just here that picks up the wall, and the roof plane comes all the way through here. This is where having those on-site photos is just incredibly important. So we're going to go to our palette and go offset edge, and we're just going to drag it until all that lines up. That's massively simplified this roof plane just here at the moment. Now something interesting has popped up. So we're lined up here at the moment, but we're not lined up with the rest of the walls. So something's happened along the way where we haven't got it offset correctly. So I'm just going to line this node up here, and then I'm going to click and drag this one just until it lines up with that exterior node just there. That, let's check all the other exterior walls, has lined up all of those exterior walls. So that must mean that it's just this one here that needed adjusting. So we'll bring this one back down until the stud meets that one there, and that should be all good. We'll just click and drag this one. The roof planes aren't meeting up here at the moment, like they are just in the image just here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to drag this ridge point just here and bring it forwards until these points match up. I'm going to give it a 33 degree. 33 is not quite enough, so we'll just bring it forwards until they all meet up. There we go. Let's go into our 3D, and now all our roof planes meet up. Let's go show all. Hey, and there we go. Now this one just here, this is actually a tile roof, so we're going to change the material to a tile. There we go. And this leaves us pretty well solid with our actual roof. Let's check in between. So these roof planes here and here are all matching up. We've got our solid roof plane along here and our solid roof plane and our little jut out, which just leaves one of the most tricky sections, which is this front portion just here, which if we check it out, let's break down these roof planes to their most simple components. So this just looks like it's a hip just here. And then we've got another roof just here. So let's check out our photo from on site as well. So here's our photo, and it looks about right. So we've got our hip coming down through here, hip here. And it looks like we've just got a gable and another little gable-ish type roof just out the front here. So we'll break this down and we'll create it with a couple of different roofs. So we'll separate two new roofs here and just keep this as the primary roof plane just here. So it'll make sense in a second. All right, let's zoom back into our floor plan. All this is kind of muddled up here at the moment. If we go into our 3D, we'll see it doesn't quite match up with what we've got in the photo or on site. So we're going to go back in and we're going to straighten this up so that these roofs here are lined up just like this. There we go. And that should give us much cleaner roof planes. So if we're now to compare this, where we've got a ridge comes up to an apex point just here, let's see what it looks like in our aerial. Yep, it all meets up to an apex point just here. Then we have the hip come down and then across through here. Roof, yep, comes down and comes down through here. So that just leaves us with these two other little ancillary roofs just here. These should be relatively straightforward and easy to make. All we need to do, we'll select our roof. We're just going to, with the multiplane method, we'll select this middle one just here, which is going to allow us to create more of a rectangle. This one just here, we'll tick it at about 2000 for the time being by say 6500. We're just creating a roof plane that we can essentially turn into a gable, just like this gable here. So I'll take the ridge and I'll bring it to the front just here, and I'll just take this back portion and do the same thing. I'll rotate the roof just so we're at 45 degrees. And I'm going to bring it down so it's centered over this foyer. So I'll take this here and I'll recenter it over that one there. All right, let's take a look in our 3D view and see how we are looking. There we go. Cool. So let's take this and compare it to our picture. So we're going to have to increase the pitch a bunch. So we'll massively increase the pitch. And then we'll also duplicate it and create a hip just out the front as well. So let's go back in. Let's change our pitch to say 45, and we'll keep the custom planes. So that's massively increased the pitch. Oops, and I've accidentally dragged it. There we go. And we're also going to want to create a hip roof in front of it as well. So let's go back into that. We'll create a duplicate of this one that we're going to line up with the exterior posts just here. And we're going to select this edge of the roof plane. And we're going to go to this setting just here in the pet palette. And this is going to allow us to change it back to a pitched roof. And we're going to go OK. So now we've got that hip again. And we need to bring these parts back out. So instead of manually doing it, what I'm better off doing is just going to our offset and setting it so that it's doing it automatically, just like that. So I've just selected back and forth between that, and that's popped that back out there. Let's pop back into our 3D and check it out. Now the roof pitch on this is way too high there at the moment, so let's change this back to, say, a 30-degree pitch, and we'll keep those roof planes custom and see how we look compared to our reference. Getting much, much closer. Now, just looking at these roof pitches, it's a shallower roof pitch than, say, this one here. So I dare say this has probably been bumped down to something along the lines of about 20, maybe 22.5. So let's go back in, change this to, say, 22.5, keep the planes custom, and that's pretty well good. Let's bring it down just so that these points match up on our gutter point just there. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to trim these columns to the actual roof itself. Let's go target, and we'll select the roof as the operator, subtraction with upward extrusion, and execute. Okay, so next up we'll want to create a wall just in behind and a little highlight window. So let's go back into our floor plan. Lots of lines going on here at the moment. So what I'd probably do in reality, I just put this so it's just on the roof plane, so it's not distracting from the actual floor plan itself when we're trying to actually design. Just looking at a reference, it looks like this wall lines up with this one just here, and the actual face of this all lines up with the wall as well. So I'm going to go ahead and grab this roof and bring it back so it matches up with this face of the wall just here. Go back into my 3D. Yep, looks better already. I'm going to go back into 2D. I'm going to select this wall just here. I'm going to copy it and paste it on the level above. So I've just went Control up and I've just went to the level above and I've pasted that in. I'm going to go ahead and select that wall that I've just done. I'm going to bring it to the front, and then I'm going to grab the doors, delete those. I'll go back into the 3D. There we go. So I'm going to select this and I'm going to go connect, and I'm going to make sure it's solid element operations. So now to crop this to this roof here, we want to go target, select this roof and go add as operator, and we'll go subtraction with upward extrusion and go execute. There we go. And we've got our wall and our roofs. From here, we could go in and add in the actual window itself, but we don't need this level of detail for this concept portion of the plans. And this area might be taken out altogether, so I'm not going to spend the time on something that mightn't get used later down the track. From here, it's relatively simple. We're going to go around through and we're going to add in some gutters. The quickest way I've found to do gutters, I'll just go into the wall tool, and I've set up actually a wall that's just a typical size of a gutter. And holding in spacebar, I can just press it once. Now it's just telling me that the operation has gone to a hidden layer. So I'll just go continue. That's because we're on the wrong story. We're on ground to first. Now, if I go up a couple of stories, it's going to show me on the actual roof frame itself. I've got these walls here there now. So if I go into 3D, double click, and then I should have my gutters. Now, if I select grouping and turn it on and bring these down just a little bit, just so that they're underneath this portion where the roof comes down to where the gutter is, then that all works out a treat. From here, again, it's just cropping these to the roof, or you could just bring them down just a bit. There we go. Now to tidy up that roof that I was mentioning just before, I'll grab this roof as well as our other roof that we created, this one here. I'm just going to go to floor plan, and instead of all stories, I'm just going to go home story only, and I'm going to go continue. And it's just going to make it so much easier to read now. There's one more area that we'll want to cover, which is, say, the bathrooms, laundries, walk-in robes, as well as the kitchen. Typically, I'll go ahead, just grab a fill, and I'll go to a bathroom fill. I'll select over the area, and I'll just select both these slabs, and I'll send these to the back. And that will make the fill pop to the front. I'm going to remove this off this section just here, and I'll drag this into our ensuite as well. I'll just cut it off from this portion just here, And that way we've got our ensuite and our laundry drawn up. I'll do the same thing for this bathroom just here. Let's go to that one and we'll drag that one on down and we'll crop that one off there. These days, I typically like to have a lighter pen for these areas, just so that it doesn't detract as much from the rest of the plan. It's a bit easier to read, I find. From here, I also want to draw in the bench tops. So if I just select the slab tool, I've got a favorite setup that I've set as kitchen bench, but essentially it's just the height of a typical bench and it's just a slab. So it bulks in the rough model of what's going on in the room. We're just going to add in a sink, which we're going to do with our symbol. This one just here. So if we go into our symbol, we'll go to, we get to sink, we'll double click and we'll pop that one in. We'll rotate this one just so it's at 45 degrees and center it into this space just here. And there we go. Now just checking our reference picture, we've got a sink there and we've got our cooktop just here. So let's draw that one in. I'll grab the sink. I'll rotate this one just here till we go to cooktop, this one just here, and put that one in just where we've got that there. Now this entire arrangement might be demolished, so we're not going into minute detail, just enough to get us ready to actually be drawing up the concept. Last but not least, we're going to fill in the bathrooms. Again, we're just going to use some objects. We'll go into some that we've got pre-set up. Going to go to shower, just for this corner shower just here. Toilet, this one just here. We'll rotate this one around. Now the vanity itself comes in like that. Now this bar, I'm not going to go into too much detail. I'm just going to rough this one in because it could take a while to try and get all that accurately modeled up. So we're just going to go like that, and we're going to give it representative text and just go SPA, SPA. There we go. That way we're not spending too much time on something that isn't critical to the actual design. And we'll duplicate these now that we've got them placed on our plan, which is going to make us much, much quicker. We're going to duplicate this one just up here, rotate that around, and just bring this one to here. Last thing is just our laundry, which is going to be laundry sink, this one just here. And we'll go to washing machine. There we go. Grab this one and plop that one in just there. Now with the walk-in robes, I also like to just add a little bit of detail just in through here. So I'm just going to draw a polyline just around here. So it's going to represent the storage space. So we're going to offset all edges here and we'll recenter that door just there. One last thing. So we'll notice we've got this tiny little ridge / valley in through here. Just going to make sure this matches up with this point just over here. So it's 10 mil difference. And that's going to save us from having that odd line that just pops down through there. All right, and with that, we've got our existing plans all drawn up, as well as an accurate 3D representation of what's on site, which means we've now got a blank canvas to start our design.